The Delivery to Apartment ABC, a true Japanese horror story. My name is Sot. At the time, I was working as a delivery driver in Tokyo. Long hours, endless packages, old apartment buildings that all looked the same. This story began when my coworker, Yuma, was hospitalized after an accident. For a few weeks, I was asked to cover his delivery room. That's when I first encountered apartment 7C. The building itself was old, too quiet, even for a residential area. The hallways smelled faintly of dust and cleaning chemicals. Most doors had shoes lined up outside, except one, 7C. No shoes, no umbrella, nothing. The first time I knocked, the door opened slowly. A young woman stood there. She was beautiful in a strange, unsettling way. Pale skin, long black hair. Her eyes stared straight through me, as if I wasn't really there. She didn't say hello. She didn't say anything at all. She simply nodded. Behind her, the apartment was spotless, unnaturally clean. No clutter, no personal items. It felt less like a home and more like a place that was being preserved. I handed her the package. She signed. The door closed. At first, I didn't think much of it, but I kept delivering to 7C, day after day. And every time, the woman looked exactly the same. Same clothes, same expression, same silence. People changed, even slightly. She never did. Then one evening, everything changed. As I stood at the door waiting for her signature, I heard a sound coming from inside the apartment, a low, strange noise, like someone struggling to breathe. It was coming from the bedroom. The woman noticed me listening. Her head tilted slightly, and she stepped just enough to block my view down the hallway. She signed quickly and closed the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. A few days later, curiosity got the better of me. I pretended I had forgotten my pen. The woman opened the door again. This time, she stepped aside to let me in. The moment I entered, I felt it. The air was cold, heavy, like the apartment was holding its breath. As I reached for the table, the sound started again. Closer this time. I followed it. The bedroom door was half open. Inside on the bed lay a man. His eyes were open, but empty. His mouth hung slightly open, drool running down his chin. His chest moved, barely, as if breathing was something his body no longer remembered how to do. He didn't look sick. He looked wrong, like a body that hadn't realized it was already dead. Suddenly, I felt someone behind me. A voice whispered close to my ear. "What are you looking at?" I froze. When I turned around, the woman was standing inches from my face. Her eyes, once hollow, were now sharp, aware. I dropped everything and ran. I didn't wait for a signature. I didn't look back. I just ran. After that, things got worse. My manager called me in. Several packages had gone missing. Security footage showed me entering the building repeatedly, but never completing deliveries. To clear things up, we went back together. Apartment 7C. The door creaked open. Inside was dust, thick, undisturbed, covering every surface. Stacks of unopened packages sat near the entrance. None of them were addressed to 7C. The apartment had been abandoned for years. Later, an older coworker told me the truth. A couple once lived there. The wife suffered from severe mental illness. One night, she poisoned her husband in that very bed. After he died, she took her own life. Since then, no one had lived in apartment 7C. That's when I realized something. The man on the bed wasn't dying. He was already dead. And the woman? She wasn't haunting the apartment. She was trapped inside a memory. Repeating it. Over and over, waiting for someone to notice. If you ever come across a place that feels too clean, too quiet, or a door that opens just a little too slowly, don't go inside. Some memories don't want to be remembered. They want to be relived. The packages. Achieving things that weren't a story. After the incident at apartment C, I tried to pretend nothing had happened. I told myself I was tired, overworked, seeing things that weren't really there. But my company didn't see it that way. A week later, complaints started coming in. Customers were calling, angry and confused. Packages marked as delivered had never arrived. At first, management thought it was a system error, until they checked the security footage. That's when my name came up. The cameras showed me entering the same apartment complex over and over again, carrying packages, walking down the hallway towards 7C. But there was one problem. I never left with an empty bag. From the camera's point of view, it looked like I was going in and simply coming back out with nothing delivered. To them, it looked like theft. I was called into the office and asked directly, "Where are the packages, Sot?" I tried to explain. The woman. The apartment. The man on the bed. My manager stared at me like I'd just confessed to a crime. To settle everything, he decided we would go back to the building together. One final delivery. One final check. Apartment 7C. The hallway felt different this time. Colder, heavier. We stood in front of the door. The same door I had knocked on so many times before. My manager unlocked it. The door creaked open, and immediately I knew something was wrong. The air was stale, thick with the smell of dust and neglect. Sunlight streamed through the windows, revealing layers of gray dust covering the floor, the furniture, the walls. No signs of life, no warmth, no presence. The apartment was clearly abandoned. My heart started pounding. Near the entrance, stacked neatly against the wall, were dozens of packages, all unopened, all untouched. Every single one of them was a package I remembered delivering. I stepped closer, my hands shaking. The labels made no sense. Different names, different apartment numbers. None of them said 7C. Not a single one. I felt sick. My manager turned to me slowly. "So," he said, his voice low, "care to explain this?" I couldn't. Because I remembered handing those packages to her. I remembered her signature. I remembered the door closing. But standing there in that dusty silence, it was clear. No one had been living here for a very long time. The woman, the man, the voice behind me. None of them should have existed. I was terminated that same day. Escorted out. No apology, no chance to explain. Just another employee caught on camera doing something that couldn't be explained. Weeks later, I ran into an older coworker at a convenience store. He asked why I'd left the company so suddenly. When I told him about 7C, his face changed. He told me something I wish I'd never heard. Years ago, a couple lived in that apartment. The wife suffered from severe mental illness. Neighbors reported screaming, crying, arguments late into the night. One evening, the husband was poisoned. He died in his bed. The wife was found days later, hanging in the apartment. Since then, the unit had remained empty. No tenants, no residents. But delivery drivers had complained for years about strange things. Packages marked as delivered, signatures that didn't exist, and a woman who answered the door, wearing the same clothes with the same empty eyes. That's when I understood. Those packages were never meant to be delivered. They were being collected, gathered, like offerings. And I realized something else. I wasn't being haunted, I was being used. If you ever work a job that takes you into quiet places, old buildings, doors that shouldn't open but do, pay attention. Because some places don't want to be lived in. They want to be remembered. And some ghosts don't ask for help. They just wait for someone to knock. The horrifying truth behind Apartment 7C, a true horror story. I thought losing my job was the end of it. I was wrong. A few days after I was fired, I ran into an older coworker at a small convenience store near the depot. He'd been with the company for over 20 years. The kind of guy who knew every building, every rumor, every place delivery drivers avoided without knowing why. He asked me why I disappeared so suddenly. When I told him about Apartment 7C, his face drained of color. He went quiet. Then he told me something he said he had hoped never to repeat. Years ago, before I ever joined the company, a married couple lived in that very unit. At first, they were normal, quiet, but things changed. The wife began showing signs of severe mental illness. Neighbors reported screaming matches almost every night, doors slamming, objects breaking, crying that echoed through the hallways at all hours. Police were called more than once. Nothing ever changed. Then one night, everything stopped. The husband was found dead in the bedroom. He had been poisoned. Rat poison mixed into his tea. He died slowly, alone in that apartment. A few days later, the wife was discovered hanging from the ceiling. The unit was sealed. No one ever moved in again. Apartment 7C was officially listed as vacant. But that wasn't the end of it. Delivery drivers began reporting strange incidents. Packages marked as delivered with signatures that didn't exist, doors opening to no one, a woman answering without speaking, and sometimes a sick man seen lying on a bed. My coworker looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "You didn't see ghosts," he said quietly. "You walked into their memory." That night, everything clicked into place. The man I saw on the bed, the way his eyes were glazed, unfocused, the way his mouth hung open, drool soaking into the pillow. He wasn't sick, he was dying, reliving his final moments over and over again. And the woman, the beautiful woman with the empty stare. the forced smile, the cup of tea waiting on the table. She wasn't welcoming guests. She was repeating the night she killed her husband, serving the tea, sitting at the table, waiting. I realized why the apartment looked so clean when I first entered, why there were no shoes at the door, why everything felt frozen in time. It wasn't a place people lived in. It was a scene being replayed, a loop, a memory soaked in guilt and obsession. I also understood why she never spoke, why she wore the same clothes every day, why she only asked me to come inside. Because in her memory, that's exactly what happened. The man drank the tea, he lay down, and she waited. The most terrifying part wasn't that they were dead, it was that they didn't know it. They were trapped inside the moment that destroyed them. And somehow, I was able to see it. Not because I was special, but because I was exhausted, overworked, distracted, in the wrong place at the wrong time. In moments like that, the boundary between the living and the dead becomes thin. I stopped delivering packages after that. I moved. I changed jobs. But sometimes late at night, I still think about apartment 7C. I wonder if the woman is still sitting at that table, if the tea is still getting cold, if the man is still lying there, waiting to die. And I wonder how many delivery drivers have knocked on that door since me, because some places don't want to be forgotten. They want to be witnessed. And once you've seen them, they never really let you go.